Alright, so I feel like my hands on Farpoint for the PlayStation VR. Now, this is a game that's being heralded as being one of the most anticipated games for the PSVR. Not just because of the gameplay. I mean, the gameplay does look amazing in gameplay trailers. But this is going to be the first game that's going to be compatible with this baby. So yeah, meet the PlayStation Aim Controller. And before we get into this, let's get down to the most important question. Is this game good? And most importantly, is this whole bundle worth the price of admission? Well, let's find out. Alright, let's start this off with the story. I will not spoil anything here, so no worries, but I will give you the basic premise. Essentially, the player takes the role of a space pilot who is on a routine mission to pick up some astronauts and take them back home. Suddenly, a wormhole opens and swallows up the astronauts and you, crash landing you on some unknown planet. Disoriented and alone, it is now your job to find out what happened to your comrades and find a way off the planet. Basically, it's your run-of-the-mill sci-fi search and rescue plot, but while the plot does seem stock at a distance, it does provide some excellent plot points to shake things up, as well as provide the audience with some believable characters thanks to some amazing voiceover work. Other than that, the pacing is brisk and seems to feel natural from start to finish. While there is no real wow factor here, the plot is serviceable enough for the player to care what will happen next, and keeps them interested all the way through. Alright, now let's move on to the aesthetic and atmosphere. I was genuinely surprised here, because the game kept throwing me curveballs. At one point, it feels like a desolate wasteland similar to something out of Dune. Next, I'm in the middle of an all-out war zone with a tone straight out of a Halo game. It was lonely at times, then cumbersome and hectic in an instant. It definitely has variety, but one underlying feeling stayed with me throughout, and that was the feeling of being in another world. Whether it was the great but somewhat forgettable music, the amazing art style, or pretty good graphics that had amazing lighting effects, it felt like a true sci-fi adventure from start to finish. Now, speaking of adventure, let's talk about the most important aspect of this whole space romp, the action, specifically the combat. The biggest draw of this game is the fact that you, the player, are thrust into this alien world, and the only thing you have to rely on is a handful of weapons. No matter what this world throws at you, arachnid aliens similar to the bug monsters from Starship Troopers, sentinels hell-bent on eradicating any and all living creatures, or bipedal aliens that wield plasma weapons, you must rely on your quick reflexes and real-world ability to aim to fight your way to survival. And here is where the aim controller comes into play. Now, just by looking at this thing, it looks like a big hunk of plastic, which it is, but it feels so nice in the hands. It's nice and weighted, and the most important thing is that this is a full-fledged DualShock 4. It has everything. Dual analog sticks, 2 of them, D-pad, face buttons on the back, R1, R2, L1, L2, options, share menu, pretty much every button that's on a PS4 controller is on here. And it just feels 100% natural in the hands. The controller is very responsive, there's no lag, and the overall feeling of an actual gun in your hands adds to the overall immersion. And it also allows for the ability to use the iron sights by lifting the gun up to your face just like a real gun. You can play this game with the DualShock 4, but you need this thing. I'm sorry, but the only way to truly experience this game is with the aim controller. Now that I've mentioned all the good parts of this game, what's the bad? Well, the only issue here, mainly with the game, is very similar to many other VR games. It's pretty short. Coming in at around 4 to 5 hours to beat, the story will be over before you know it. But thankfully the developers thought ahead and added on a challenge mode, where you must traverse a patch of land and face off against an onslaught of enemies. Not only that, but this can also be played online in a seamless co-op mode, definitely adding hours of playtime, which honestly in my opinion is great because the level of immersion this game provides cannot be contained into one simple campaign. Not to mention, this game can get pretty hard, so the fact that there's a challenge mode with even harder difficulties will keep action hounds coming back for more. Alright, so now onto my final thoughts. This game is an amazing experience and truly groundbreaking. Now, light guns are nothing new to the world of video games, but this is the first time where it's integrated perfectly into VR for the consumer market. Don't get me wrong, the motion controllers feel great, but the fact of the matter is the aim controller truly feels like a real gun, which just adds a whole nother layer of immersion. No longer do we have to hope that we play one of these at a consumer show as a tech demo. This is now available for all of you to enjoy. And you know what? It's pretty great. Well, that's the review. And now, let's get to the most important question. Is it worth the money? And I mean everything. The whole shebang. And yeah, by itself, this game is a lot of fun. Is it worth $50? The gameplay while the game is great, the game only lasts about 4 to 5 hours. It's a really short game. While it does have, some great replayability with matchmaking and a challenge mode, for 50 bucks, no. And also, more to the point, I do not recommend buying this game alone. Yes, this game is fun and it could easily be worked with a DualShock, but in order to play this game perfectly, you need this, and you really, really need this, because as a peripheral for the PlayStation, at least hoping that they actually, support it in the long run, this is gonna be kicking some doors in. But most importantly, I don't know how much this thing is by itself. I mean, I don't think that they're actually selling it by itself just yet. But as a whole, this whole thing is worth, or it's being priced at $80 US. Now, thankfully, I bought this thing for about 60 bucks thanks to Amazon Prime. But for 80 bucks, I don't know. It's at such a perfect price point where I honestly feel like it might be steep, but at the same time, the experience is just amazing. So yeah, if you find this for actual price 80 bucks, or if you find it for cheaper, snap it up. Again, 80 bucks, you need to understand what you're getting yourself into, and if you don't care, yes, I recommend for 80 bucks. But if you're going to be buying it currently right now at the time of the video, this thing's already being scalped. I mean, heavily, so I'd recommend waiting. I don't recommend, appeasing the scalpers. I mean, they're pieces of shit, but this thing is worth the $80. So just, yeah, it's hard for me to say, but it's perfectly priced. It's a great experience, and honestly, it's worth the price of admission. But yeah, that's the video. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys later.